Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Cycle on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Annie T. Patrick. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and on Star Times channel 276. Now the news in full. Minister of Information and National Orientation Mohammed Idris has dismissed claims that Nigeria violates religious freedom, describing them as false and damaging to the country's image. Speaking at the 5th National Advertising Conference held in Abuja, Idris said such claims distort the reality of Nigeria's diversity. The minister said while Nigeria faces security challenges, the problems are not religiously motivated, noting that the present administration is investing in security and reorganizing its structures to combat terrorism. The federal government has announced a 60% increase in the national health budget, a move described by officials as part of President Bola Tinubu's ongoing effort to improve healthcare delivery and address long-standing workforce challenges. Speaking at the 2025 Joint Annual Health Sector Review in Abuja, the Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Ali Pate, said the additional funds are intended to finance vaccine procurement, epidemic preparedness, and overhaul health systems strengthening. Pate said the administration plans to raise 150 billion naira over the next 2 years to support these priorities, also stressing that 35 states now conduct annual health reviews, and all 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory have operational health plans aligned with national priorities. It was a day of chairs and political realignment in the House of Representatives as former lawmaker and key political figure from Kano, Abdul Mumumin Jibrin and Sagil Koki officially announced their defection from the new Nigerian People's Party, NNPP, to the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC. Moving away from that, we have the Senate has moved to outlaw the recruitment of persons under the age of 18 into the military as it passed the Armed Forces Repealed and Reenactment Bill 2025 for second reading. Sponsored by Abdulaziz Yaradua, the bill seeks to repeal the existing Armed Forces Act 2004 and replace it with a constitutionally compliant and operationally responsive law. Yaradua, while leading the debate on the floor of the Senate, stated that the reform was long overdue, noting that the current legislation, originally derived from a military decree, no longer meets the demands of modern governance, democratic accountability, or evolving security realities. Well, lawmakers in the House of Representatives have debated two major motions, one on abandoned federal assets worth trillions of naira and another on near collapse of Nigeria's once booming rice industry. The lawmakers are raising alarms over what they describe as a monumental economic waste over 11,800 federal government buildings and landed properties abandoned across the country, valued at more than 20 trillion naira. National Assembly correspondent tells us more. Moving on to the stories, troops of Operational Handi K have rescued 74 National Youth Service Corps members from a possible adoption by Boko Haram and ISWAP terrorists along the Buratai Kamoya Road in Borno State. The media information officer of the task force, Sani Uba, said this in a statement. The operation was launched after CCTV monitoring detected suspicious movements involving 3 stranded buses at a known kidnapping hotspot late Tuesday night. And to some politics stories, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has intensified preparations for its 2025 National Elective Convention scheduled to hold on November 15th and 16th at the Lekon Salami Stadium, Adamasingba, Ibadan, Oyo State. In a statement posted on its official X handle, the party said the convention, tagged #Ibadan 2025, would mark a historic moment in its journey towards internal renewal and readiness for the 2027 general elections. The statement said over 3,000 delegates from the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory are expected to attend, alongside party leaders, stakeholders, and international observers, including members of the diplomatic community. As part of its effort to enhance seamless operations and ease trade facilitation for traders and other stakeholders in the maritime industry, the Nigerian Customs Service, NSC, has formally introduced its one-stop shop initiative at Zone A, Lagos, to reduce cargo dwell time at port to 48 hours. Speaking at the highly attended event, which was held at Apapa Area Command of the service, the Zonal Coordinator of Zone A, Assistant Comptroller General Mohammed Babandede, described the platform as a smarter technology-driven approach to cargo clearance that will enhance efficiency, transparency, and interagency collaboration. The one-stop shop initiative, the service said, is expected to reduce cargo dwell time to an average of 48 hours per shipment, cut demurrage costs for importers, and foster accountability in post operations. You're watching the live broadcast of News Cycle. When News Cycle returns, Nigeria Super Eagles, Gabon Patterns, crucial playoff showdown kicks off in Rabat, Morocco, and details coming shortly, plus business and foreign stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is News Cycle on Global Television. In business, the federal government has suspended the proposed 15% ad valorem import duty earlier approved on premium motor spirits and diesel imports. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority confirmed the suspension on Thursday, assuring that the policy was no longer in view. The authority also reassured Nigerians of adequate fuel supply nationwide, noting that current reserves remain within the acceptable national sufficiency threshold despite peak demand. The Senate has approved President Bola Tinubu's request to raise 1.15 trillion naira from the domestic debt market to finance the unfunded portion of the 2025 budget deficit. Here's Topsy Gimba with more.
The approval came after the Senate adopted a report from the Committee on Local and Foreign Debt during plenary session. The report highlighted that the 2025 Appropriation Act sets total expenditure at nearly 60 trillion naira, an increase of 5.25 trillion over the initially proposed 54.74 trillion naira. This budget expansion resulted in a deficit of 14.10 trillion naira. Of this, 12.95 trillion naira has already been approved for borrowing, leaving an unfunded gap of approximately 1.15 trillion naira, which the Senate has now authorized to be raised domestically.
Recommendation 1, that the Senate do approve Mr. President's request to establish a 1,150 billion naira borrowing program in the domestic debt market to close the unfunded deficit gap created by the increase in the budget size over and above the prior approved revenue and borrowing plans. Those in favor of these recommendations say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
In another move, the Senate adopted a motion by Senator Abdul Ningi mandating the Committee on Appropriations to intensify oversight over the implementation of borrowed funds. He said the committee is tasked to ensure that the money is used effectively within the 25 fiscal year and strictly for the intended purposes.
That the Committee of Appropriations should ensure that the borrowing is actually made for the purpose of which is required before the Senate. That the borrowing, the Appropriation Committee should ensure that the borrowing is made for the purposes of which that the Appropriation Committee should ensure that the borrowing is actually to fund the 2025 appropriation.
This decisive legislative action underscores the Senate's commitment to fiscal responsibility and transparency as Nigeria navigates its 2025 budgetary challenges. Topsy Gimba, reporting for Global Television News.
The House of Representatives is taking a hard look at oil and gas companies accused of shortchanging their host communities. Lawmakers say the firms have failed to remit the mandatory 3% of their annual operating expenditure as required by the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021. Here's National Assembly correspondent with more details. The resolution followed a motion raised by Hart Godwin, who said many oil and gas firms are yet to comply with the Host Communities Development Trust Fund provision, a key feature of the Petroleum Industry Act, designed to ensure that all producing communities benefit directly from exploration activities. Under Section 240 of the Act, each oil company is required to contribute 3% of its annual operating expenditure into the fund, while Section 236 mandates that such trusts be incorporated within 12 months of the Act's commencement. But Godwin told the House that several operators have either ignored these provisions or failed to remit the funds, leaving host communities in neglect and hardship.
Mandate the Committee on Host Communities to investigate the failure of regulatory agencies to act decisively.
The House has now directed its Committee on Host Communities to investigate both the oil companies and the regulatory agencies responsible for enforcing compliance and report back within 4 weeks. In a related development, lawmakers also resolved to probe the financial dealings of NNPC LNG Limited. The House Committee on Gas Resources is to examine the operations and remittances of NNPC LNG Limited, a Cayman Islands registered subsidiary of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, amid allegations of unreported financial transactions and possible revenue losses to the federal government. Lawmakers expressed concern over deductions from liquefied natural gas proceeds allegedly made without due authorization or disclosure.
Without a formal notification, disclosure, or approval of the federal government, thereby raising serious concerns of financial improprieties.
Are expected to submit their findings within 4 weeks, part of what lawmakers describe as renewed efforts to enforce transparency and accountability in Nigeria's oil and gas sector. From the National Assembly, Anie Patrick reporting for Global TV News. Meanwhile, lawmakers in the House of Representatives have debated two major motions, one on abandoned federal assets worth trillions of naira and another on the near collapse of Nigeria's once booming rice industry. The lawmakers are raising alarms over what they describe as a monumental economic waste. Over 11,800 federal government buildings and landed properties abandoned across the country, valued at more than 20 trillion naira. Yes, National Assembly correspondents with more. The motion, sponsored by Minority Leader Kingsley Chinda, pointed to a report by the Nigerian Institute of Quality Surveyors, which found that nearly 63% of federal building projects initiated since independence remain incomplete or deserted. Among the abandoned projects cited are the Federal Secretariat in Ikoyi, the Millennium Tower and National Library in Abuja, and the Cardinal Textile Building, among others.
The House is most humbly urged to set up a special ad hoc committee of the House to review the PIC report conducted in year 2000, as well as verify reports of other properties abandoned since year 2000 in order to identify the state of these properties and report infractions, determine and make recommendations for final resolution.
Lawmakers blame bureaucratic delays and lack of transparency, noting that a committee set up in 2000 to account for government properties has yet to submit its report 25 years later. After debate, the House resolved to set up a special ad hoc committee to verify the status of the properties and review the 2000 Presidential Implementation Committee report within 6 weeks. In another motion, the House also turned its attention to the collapse of local rice farming and milling, warning that recent import waivers and smuggling are threatening food security and livelihoods. Mohammed Jajere, who sponsored the motion, said the 180-day duty waiver for imported rice has crippled demand for locally produced brands, forcing many mills to shut down. He added that inconsistent policies have discouraged farmers and reversed the gains made under previous administrations.
That frequent changes in government policies have disrupted the agricultural production value chain, making it challenging for farmers to plan for the future. Concerned that if this is not addressed appropriately, the country may be losing billions of naira due to the closure of most of these rice mills.
The House has directed its Committee on Agricultural Production and Services to investigate the matter and report back within 4 weeks. As the probe commences, Nigerians will be watching to see whether these investigations finally translate into accountability and revival of key national assets. From the National Assembly, Anie Tie Patrick reporting for Global TV News. And on the foreign scene, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the United States' boycott of the G20 summit in South Africa later this month would not prevent the meeting of the world's leading economies from going ahead. Pretoria and Washington have clashed over a range of policy issues, including South Africa's summit agenda, culminating in President Donald Trump announcing that no U.S. official will attend the Johannesburg gathering. Here's Raul Nasir with more.
Ramaphosa told reporters in the coastal city of Cape Town that South Africa will take fundamental decisions, affirming that the United States stands to lose if it decides to boycott the summit. He noted that, in many ways, the United States is also giving up the very important role that it should be playing as the biggest economy in the world.
The United States is also giving up very important role that they should be playing as the biggest economy.
Set to hold between November 22nd and 23rd, the summit marks the first time the G20 will convene on African soil. South Africa, current G20 chair, wants to use its presidency to champion global South priorities, including boosting climate resilience and tackling debt in developing countries before handing the baton to the United States next year. Zahra Nasser reporting for Global TV News.
And in sports, the Super Eagles of Nigeria are currently taking on Gabon's Panthers in Rabat, Morocco, in a decisive CAF playoff for 2026 FIFA World Cup Interconfederation sport. Nigeria advanced to the stage as one of Africa's best runners-up, boosted by a 4-0 win over Benin Republic that included a Victor Osimhen hat-trick. Winner of the match will face either Cameroon or DR Congo on November 16th for a place in the global playoff round that could secure a World Cup ticket. The Nigerian College and Football Federation Association is making waves in grassroots flag football as it flags off its participation at NUGA Games 2025 in the University of Jos. The Federation has already struck gold, clinching top honors in flag football events internationally and now setting its sights on the upcoming Secondary School Championship finals in Abuja. Yes, Samuel Odi with the report.
18 state champions, male and female, are going to gear up for what promises to be an explosive flag football showdown as the Nigerian College and Football Federation Association stages its finals in Abuja. The event, scheduled to hold from the 18th to the 22nd of November 2025, will bring together the best teams from across the country. It was a moment of pride and progress for Nigerian College and Football Federation Association as its football team participated at the 27th edition of NUGA Games in Jos. Beyond the celebration, Oluwatobi Ade says this stands as a testament to the growing impact of grassroots flag football initiatives championed by the Nigerian Amateur Football Association, NAFA.
A lot of people have this misconception, is it rugby, is it volleyball, but we've successfully gone about spreading the gospel of American football, flag football, to let them know this is a different sport, not used to, not something different from what they've been seeing. And over the years, since inception, we've been able to, establish a lot of initiatives and flagship programs for flag football that has really helped us to spread the word of what we've been doing. Now,
as Abuja gets set to host the final championship games of NAFA, the event promises to bring together the nation's best flag football teams for what promises to be a thrilling climax to the season. Samuel Odi for Global Television News.
And that's it on News Cycle. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and on Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across all our social media platforms now showing on your screen using @Global TV NG. I am Aniti Patrick. Thank you for being a part of the bulletin.